Thank you, everybody, for supporting me, for watching. This is another episode of the Late Night Show with Dr. Kojo. You already know what to do. I've been cooling on my own, ain't gonna lie. How's everybody's weekend? Go ahead and get comfortable in the stream. You know what to do. Let me know where y'all checking in from so I can see, everybody's at Jennifer. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Chris, Judy, what's up? Pennsylvania's in the house. Destiny's in the house. Randy's in the house. So, as y'all know, I'm checking in live from Southern California, Los Angeles. I want to know where you all are checking in from, and we're gonna get into the topic for today. It's a pretty big one. Switch over, Anna. Thank you so much. Arizona, Kentucky, Montreal, Georgia, KP. I appreciate you. Kathleen, St. Joe, Missouri, San Diego, St. Louis. Sarah, what's up? Shout out to Sarah. Came over for my TikTok. We have to acknowledge all people who came over for my TikTok. We just hit 2 million followers on TikTok last night. Extremely exciting. So Alexa, volume 4. Okay, we'll let that song right now. But yeah, we just hit 2 million followers on TikTok, and that's where I got my start. Without that platform, I wouldn't have the confidence to post online. So shout out to everybody who came over from TikTok. If you came over from TikTok and you watched me get ready for this live when I was doing my hair and all that stuff, and putting lotion in my face, you all get a collective love of the show. Tracy, I see. Dr. Dope verses. Yeah, so we're talking about boundaries today, and it's something that we don't talk about. I mean, we talk about boundaries, right? But when you talk about boundaries with family, there's a reason why I want to talk about boundaries with family, and you can even throw friends in there, because I think it's harder to set boundaries with people who you're closer to. And I think it's because there's certain people whose opinion of us we care about more than sometimes our opinion of ourselves, right? Family members, loved ones, people close to us. So sometimes when you care for somebody so much, you might be afraid to tell them like how you feel. You might be afraid to say, hey, I don't like doing this, or like I'm too busy for that, or I can't make this a priority right now. It's hard to set boundaries with family. I feel that with somebody that you don't know, you can say, hey, like, I don't really know you, or like, I can't really take this commitment on. But with family, it becomes extremely difficult to set those boundaries. So we're going to talk about that tonight, and I'm going to give y'all some examples of different ways that I've had to set boundaries and how hopefully it can be helpful to you. I see Brittany said, I just don't talk to them. Well, respect the people. Whatever relationship you have with your family, I do acknowledge and I respect it. But I want to start off by talking about my family. So I'm very, very close to my family. I think we're probably closer than most families. Like, we're really tight knit. And for me, it was hard to set boundaries with my family because, I come from a West African household. Ghana, and then we came to the States. We didn't have anything, Section 8, food stamps. We really had to work our way up. And, we grew up poor, right? So when you're poor, you have a tendency to stick together. So we really bonded. So my siblings and I were really close. I'm close to my parents. And as you grow older, right, you start to do things differently from your parents, right? You start to have like your own type of lifestyle. Like I talk a lot about having ADHD on here and how it affects my life. Like, I have a life built for convenience, right? So that includes like a couple of assistants who streamline everything for me, a housekeeper who comes, a couple times a month to keep my place clean for me, and I was able to wake up this morning. It's Monday. Everything was clean. Like, everything, I felt good. Like, everything was clean. Like, my 2 monitors here, like, everything was in place, and just my kitchen was nice. Like, I just felt good. I felt great. So shout out to my housekeeper. Once again, I got her a Christmas gift this year because she's a big part of like my family. I would call her a big part of my family. So I live a life based off convenience, and my parents, not that they don't, but like I'm trying to do social media for a living, and they're regular people. Like they're people who do things probably the right way. Because social media, like sometimes the way we work is not the right way. Sometimes we work too much. But I would say that they do things a more proper and standardized way. So they have different ways of doing things. I have different ways of doing my things. But as we grow older, like my dad's his own man, I'm my own man. And sometimes you're gonna clash on certain things. And the tendency to not want to speak up and say something is going to be great. Because for me at first, like I thought that if I would say something to my dad, that it's like I'm not a good child, I'm disrespectful. And growing up in that, I don't know uh, if any of y'all are not from this country, like if y'all not from the States, and I'm trying to look through the comments and see where y'all are from. I'm seeing a lot of English names like Krista and Tiffany and Brittany and Victoria. So I don't think y'all are from West Africa, or I don't know if y'all are from any other country, but in foreign communities, right, the person at the top, like the elders, they can do no wrong, right? So sometimes, and I think a lot of childhood trauma comes from this. I don't want to get off topic because that's another segment. But sometimes, like you have the OGs at the top, the parents and the grandparents, and they can never do any wrong, right? So if a child brings up a good point, the child's going to be shut down. And then if the parents mess up, they never apologize to the kids. I'm not saying that this is what my parents did, but that was a culture that we kind of grew up in. Like you never questioned. Okay, somebody from Nigeria. Okay, so Reese, yes, another second Pete. So when you're from West Africa, Philippines, like you all understand how this works. You don't question the people at the top. So as you get older, sometimes the kids or the teenagers make a good point, and then you'll say something to your parents, and your parents like they'll look at each other and they're like, "These kids are kind of getting smart, right?" But you can never be right. They're always right, and you're always wrong, right? And that's just how it is. And I think sometimes that leads to some childhood trauma because kids aren't able to speak up for themselves. But as you get older and you can do things your own way, I do things my own way. My parents do things their own way. It's fine. We love each other. I have the best relationship with them. But the hardest time to set boundaries is always the first one. Like telling your parents, like, hey, I don't have time to do this or I don't have time to do that. It's gonna hurt their feelings. And when I have to tell them, like, hey, I can't make it to this or this event because I'm doing this. Initially, it seems like, oh, this person's selfish, or maybe, and now it's like you can say, oh, he moved out to LA, he thinks he's like famous or whatever. Maybe he doesn't feel like he's part of the family. Of course, my family doesn't say that to me because we're tight, and like I've already had to set boundaries with them, and they've all had to set boundaries with me too. But in the beginning, it can be hard to say, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make this event. I can't make this baby shower. I can't, go to this event because I have my own things to do. And that was very hard for me in my at least in my upbringing. Very, very difficult to speak up. So when I got the courage to speak up, it was liberating. But I only got the courage because I got to the point where I realized that if I didn't bring things up to my parents, it was going to impact our relationship. And it was very, like, the thought of it makes me sad because, like, I love my parents. Like, I do anything for my parents. But the way life is with different lifestyles and, people being so busy, at some point you have to speak up for yourself and say, hey, like, sometimes, like, what, I think a lot of foreign moms do this where, Sierra, thank you so much. I appreciate the comment, Sierra Jones. I appreciate you. But a lot of foreign moms will, sometimes they'll brag on their son and they'll be like, "Oh, I have this son. He can help you, or he can." Like moms like to volunteer you for things, right? And growing up as a kid, my mom would say, "Oh, go help this lady or this old lady hold the door," and I would do that, and she'd act like I won the Super Bowl. So I learned, okay, at a young age, you have to be kind to people. But now that I'm an adult, I mean, I have 4 assistants to help me with, like, my life is not even like my own all the way because like I'm so connected to a lot of different things, So sometimes, like my mom did this years back, where she said, "Hey, Coach, I gave somebody your number. I need you to help them out. They're a great person," and she means well, right? But I'm like, Mom, I can't be having my number given out. Like I just, in fact, yesterday I changed my number. Like it's I can't, I can't like just this is a random person, Mom. Like I want to help, but like there's levels to it. And obviously, like my parents, they know exactly what I'm doing on social media now. So they've learned. But the first time that you have that conversation, there's going to be hurt feelings. There's going to be hurt feelings on both sides. You're on your end because you feel like you're hurting them, and then them because they feel like, oh, my child is moving differently. So it's been very hard to set boundaries. For me, it's been hard to set with my family, but having those uncomfortable conversations. And the reason why I'm telling you all is because I've had those uncomfortable conversations, and now I'm at the point to where my parents can call me and tell me anything that they know that I might not want to hear, but it's something that I need to hear, and vice versa. I can call them and say, "Hey, mom, I was not comfortable with this." So we're so like transparent with each other, and I think that's a miracle because I mean, aside from those y'all who are from like Nigeria or something like that, or outside the states, you don't understand how much of a miracle it is to be able to get to that point with foreign parents to where y'all can talk freely. And of course, I'm not everything I tell my mom, right? Like we're still adults, you don't tell every single thing, but I'm much more free with my parents than I've ever been. And it's because we have to go through the uncomfortable patch in the beginning where you have to set boundaries. And if you don't set boundaries, sometimes that people pleasing tendency that comes with maybe just being a human, like you feel like you have to please people. So when you feel that way all the time, you're going to be reluctant to set the boundaries that will eventually improve your relationship in the long run. So that's why it's so important to set those boundaries and set it with the people that is the hardest to set it with, if that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. So that's my little rant. I had to get that story out. A shout out to my parents. Like, without them, like this is not possible. Speaking of my mom, one of these days we'll talk about parenting, right? Or parenting with ADHD, parenting a child with ADHD. And my mom, she didn't know nothing about ADHD, growing up. But one thing that she did for me that was very helpful, she would always say that you're going to do great things in this country. You're going to be like fantastic. You're going to make a difference. And I was in there failing classes in school. Like, man, I just want to go out and play with my friends. I didn't believe it, but having people that believed in you, like that goes a long, long way. So shout out to my parents. I really, really appreciate that. Shout out to my parents. And now I'm looking through the comments. So it says, "What our parent doesn't listen to us like we're adults." So this might be, I'm sure the person asking this is probably like a teen or something like that. It's difficult when sometimes parents, whether it's cultural or whether it's a personality issue, sometimes parents always think that they're the parents and they will never listen to the kids. Even if your parents are 70 and you're 45, sometimes people just have in their mind where they can never be wrong. And in that situation, you've got to do the best that you can do. So you have to, Brittany says twofolds. You have to understand that your best is good enough. Don't don't worry about what you can't do. Worry about what you can do. Because sometimes, like when you think about what you can't do, it gets frustrating. Like you can't change your parents' opinion on anything, but you can speak up for yourself respectfully. I don't want y'all to be like, to get the confidence to go badmouth your parents. I don't want that. I don't want your parents emailing me saying that, my child is, screaming about, respectfully, very, very respectfully. So I'm looking through the comments. Sarah, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, Tracy, shout out to Mama and Papa Sarfo, or Dr. Sarfo on my dad's end, but they are the real MVPs. They are definitely the real MVPs. I'm looking here at a comment, and Nicole, I appreciate you. Sid says, "I spoke up for myself and got kicked out of the house." So I want to talk about that for a second. When you, and Janet, sorry for your loss. I just saw it there. When you speak up for yourself and you put boundaries in place, you have to be mindful of one thing that can happen, right? You might get a bad reaction from the other side, and there may be consequences. So when you speak up for yourself and you have boundaries, you have to keep that in mind, right? Like if you go, let's take work for example, right? You have a boss who keeps throwing you under the bus, blah blah blah, this that, and the third. When you speak up to your boss, right, respectfully for the first time and say, "Hey, this has been my job performance for the past 2 months. I've been doing more, and I'm not being appreciated enough. I don't think this is a healthy work environment. I would like it if you could do X, Y, and Z for me. Sometimes you might speak up and you might get fired. You might actually be fired. You might speak up to your parents. Not say that they're going to kick you out, but sometimes these things happen where you have to be prepared for the outcome, whichever way. So I'm not telling kids, because I have a big platform. I don't want to I don't want y'all to take my words out of context. I'm not telling y'all to stand up to your parents all of a sudden and get kicked out of the house. But whatever ways you can find to speak up respectfully so that your voice is heard is going to be important, because it does something to your self-esteem when you don't speak up for yourself. You feel like you're letting yourself down. Um, Someone says, what about parents who are having marriage issues and one or both lean on you to fill the gaps? Trisha, that's a nice name, by the way. Trisha, so it's like Patricia without the P. I'm happy you commented that, because I don't even know where to take this. So I had a debate with a friend of mine, and we were talking about issues in the Black community, and we talked about this issue specifically. And I'm sure everybody, this is not like based on color, but we're just talking from our perspective, about how in the Black community sometimes parents, if it's a single parent, they might view a child, or you might be thrust into that parental role, and you really don't realize that you become like a third parent until like you're grown, because sometimes in the moment it's hard to really realize what's happening. You just have to kind of grow up faster. But ideally, regardless of the family dynamic, however, if it's a Black family, white family, Hispanic, doesn't matter here. The main objective is to know that kids should have to be kids and parents should have to be parents. And I mean, I don't have any kids now, but obviously, when I have kids, I'm going to do my best to let the kids be the kids, and the parents to be the parents. And sometimes kids have to go to therapy because their parents did it. We'll have a discussion about that one day. Good comment. Good comment. Really good comment right there. And somebody says, haven't talked to my parents in years. Sometimes you have to love someone from distance. Yeah. So Alyssa, I definitely respect that. And there are people who have those relationships where it's not the closest, and it's probably strained, and they feel like they can love, their parents or their family from a distance. And I definitely respect that, because just because, I'm close to my family, I don't need you all to go out and force a relationship that's not there with your family members, So it's like wherever you are, if that's where you are and you're doing the best that you can, I mean, I support it. There's a reason why you're doing what you're doing. So you want people to feel respected on both sides. So that you bring up a good point. And somebody says, Abby, yes, I can make more social anxiety teen videos. Somebody has a good question here. What if not being able to set boundaries with my parents is hurting my marriage? Ooh, this is a good question. And this is going to make my head spin in a couple of different ways. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a love of the show. I'll give you a love of the show. That's an engaging question. This is tough. This is really tough here because, it reminds me of that debate that used to go on Twitter back in the day, where I don't know if they're still debating on it on Twitter, because sometimes people have done, well, I don't want to say that, or even me, sometimes I get caught up in those debates. So Twitter is a perfect place to go debate when you have free time. But people used to get this argument of, you're the guy and you're driving your car. Who sits in the front? Is it your mom or your wife? And people are like, no, the mom should sit there because she gave birth to you. And then other people are like, oh no, the wife should sit in the front seat because like that's your wife, right? And so once again, I'm not here to answer that question, but I'm here to say that with the question that you asked, not being able to set boundaries with my parents has hurt my marriage. This is where I would say it's becoming an issue. Only respectfully, I say this because if let's say you can't set boundaries with your parents or with your family, right? Not setting boundaries, I feel like it's gonna kind of like lower your self-esteem a little bit, and it's gonna be hard for you to speak up for yourself. And I wouldn't want you to have your self-esteem lowered, right? Like I'd like for you to be working on it. But if that's all that's happening, then it's not like urgent, right? It's something to be mindful of, but it's not urgent. But when not being able to set boundaries is getting to the point where it's costing you money, it's hurting you in your marriage, then at that point I'm like, you know what? This is a problem, right? Marriage is like a commitment. That's the commitment. So it's tough, and I'm once again, I don't know you, so I don't want to speak of your situation specifically, but just take anybody who their relationship or with their parents or the lack of boundaries, you know, between them and their parents is causing their marriage to have issues. Just take anybody who's in that situation. A lot of times you can probably look back and realize that you're in this position because you probably didn't set boundaries from the jump that would have not only saved your relationship with your parents, but also saved your marriage. And not saying your marriage will fail, but I think the sooner you can kind of respectfully iron out some of those issues, it's gonna be rough in the beginning. Like I tell people all the time, when you set boundaries, sometimes you'll never hear from folks again. That'll be the last time that you hear Mickey Ficky. People just leave. People will leave. People will leave. Flexibly rigid. Brett, what's going on? How you doing, Brett? Um, if not having a boundary is harmful, then the boundary is healthy. Fight for your relationship to be healthy. Okay, Krista, I like that. Yes, so it's really tough setting those boundaries with uh, families. You have to understand that you might lose, and that's the part that I think nobody talks about on social media, right? Like I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook Reels, I'm on IG, I'm on YouTube Shorts, and you watch these videos, and everybody's dancing. Well, I'm dancing, right, and doing the little, moves, all this stuff, and then we put in the caption, setting boundaries, blah blah blah. But I think we can do a better job of talking about what happens after you set the boundaries. Like after you set the boundaries, you might lose people, and that's the part that nobody's prepared for. And if you could lose like a family member, I mean, Mickey Ficky, that's rough. Sometimes there's people out there who are grieving other people that are still alive. Like the person hasn't died, but you're grieving your friendship with that person because it's gone, and you feel like it's never going to come back. That's a different type of grief. Alice, I'm doing good. How you doing? I'm doing good. Let me see. Tips on setting. Let me check out this question right here. Do you have any tips on setting boundaries with family being paranoid about a sex life? Hmm. Okay. Let's see where we go with this because I really need some serious advice on that because of how my family is on the subject. It's bad enough that my mother keeps telling me almost in a threatening tone that I shouldn't be sexually active. Okay. That's a good question. That's a real good question right there. And it, it's a good question, and I'm gonna answer this question in a way that can provide everybody value, right? So, Jordan, I'm gonna say that you're 18 or like you're a willing and grown adult, you can consent, right? So, if an 18-year-old is having issues because their parents, you know, tell them that they shouldn't be having sex, and they're saying that I'm an adult and I want to do what I want to do, then you are an adult and you can do the things that you want to do. Um, and speaking up for yourself might damage that relationship with your parents, but it is good to speak up for yourself if you're able to get to the point where you can do that. And the frustration comes from the hurt, right? Like your parents believe one thing, they believe you should not be having sex, and then you believe that if you want to, you should engage in it. So y'all gonna clash, right? I don't think you'll wake up the next day and then they've changed their mind, or you change your mind, right? So who's gonna compromise? Who's gonna budge? We don't know. So by making a certain decision, it might strain your relationship with them in a sense. But if you can get to the point where you all get past the hurt, because it's not really about like sex is not the thing that we're talking about here. Is the thing that we're talking about is the fact that one person feels like this, or one side feels like this, and the other side feels like that. That's what we're talking about. That's the important thing. And if you can get past the hurt, right, or if both of y'all can get past the hurt, you can get to the root of the issue, and then your parents are talking to you and you're talking to them, and you're like, oh, well, I'm sorry that we were raising our voice to each other. Like, let's talk this out in a respectful way. And then you can speak up for yourself and say, hey, it's not that I want to sleep with everybody. I just don't want to feel like I'm X, Y, and Z. I don't feel like I'm whatever your rationale is for how you feel, the way you feel. And they can come back and say, we don't want to control you. We're concerned about babies, whatever, or religion, whatever their concern is. Maybe I'll get to a point where you can just hash it out. But once you can get over like that hurt that comes from setting that boundary, you can get to some productive conversation in there. Boundaries of African families, they show up to your house while calling. So yeah, I mean, that sounds like something that happens sometimes in African families. And you just have to let them know. But I mean, like, I live in California, so it'd be hard for my family to drive from, from Atlanta or Nashville to surprise me. Like, I would know. I don't know. And Kimberly, yes. So you all can save, these lives are automatically saved. Like, if you go back and look at my Facebook page, I'm trying to figure out how it could be more like organized. But if you look in the Facebook watch, you can see my content. Like, I've been going live on this schedule for 3 weeks now. Every single live is saved. Some of them 45 minutes, some of them an hour and a half, but all of them are saved. So don't worry. Like, if you have to bounce out or whatever, like, this live is going to be there. I felt that grieving for people that are still alive. Our children suffer because I have boundaries and they want no part of their lives. My husband suffers, but yeah, it can be tough. I told my mom so I could be on birth control. Yeah, so that's one thing that I think, not, how I say this, not to say that women have a harder than men or vice versa, but I think growing up as a teenage, being a lady, and while you're in that teenage stage, speaking up for yourself can be quite difficult, So it's important to speak up for yourself so you can have that confidence that you're like a young adult. But also, you know, have an open ear and just maybe check out what your parents are saying. Not that they run your life, but maybe they're trying to protect you from something. If y'all on the same team here, that's the key that I want y'all to know. Y'all are on the same team here. Jen, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And Stephanie says, my marriage comes first. Its own piece of that. Yeah. So I think that goes back to the person who their relationship with their parents was affecting their marriage. I think at that point we can also say that that's an issue, right? That's an issue. And I don't think people's parents are out here trying to sabotage, your relationship or your marriages. So it's not intentional. So when it's not intentional, it's like, do people really know what's going on? Do people really know what's happening? They're probably just living their life thinking that this is how I do things, not knowing that, your son or your daughter's marriage is suffering because of what you're doing. We're taught to obey, particularly in the Midwest. Cindy, so yeah, I thank you for saying that. And obviously, I started off the show by talking about how foreign families are like really big on like respect and obeying. But I'm out here in the States, in the Midwest and maybe in the South, like respect does go a long way. So sometimes, I feel like you can have somebody from Athens, Georgia, right, or Iowa, depending on how they grew up, relate to somebody like me who grew up in West Africa because, the lifestyles might be similar, Let me see some good, Sarah, I appreciate that. Marla says, you're absolutely wonderful. I love how you step outside the box instead of being another Dr. Morgan suit. Yeah, so look, this is like a show that I came up with. Like, I came up with this thing. Like, nobody is like forcing me to do anything. So I can do what I want, right? And to a degree, I can't be out here talking reckless, like, can't do that. But in terms of like wearing what I want to wear, like, I'm just wearing like this Nike get up and I feel comfortable, and it's about being relatable. If I come up here in a suit and I'm like I'm 29, I'm not no grown, I mean, I'm grown, but I'm not like like, I don't want like dad vibes. Like, I'm young, relatively speaking. So like we're just cooling out here. We're just having a good time. Ooh, Terrence, Mickey Ficky. I like this question right here. How do you establish boundaries with your spouse after they cheated? Since I've been in counseling, that's one thing my therapist asked me to do. Oh, Mickey Ficky, Mickey Ficky. So, hmm, establishing boundaries. So this is how I feel about cheating. The thing that hurts with the cheating is, yes, the fact that they did so on and so forth with somebody, but what's even more hurtful is the fact that like it's a deception. It's like damn, you really did that, but like it was concealed, and like if you didn't get caught, you weren't going to say something. Like that shows that okay, there's like a trust issue there, like a deep trust issue. So now it's going to be hard to set boundaries or even trust that person because you're like, I don't know if I can trust them. But I think finding a therapist is an excellent idea. I love that idea. Working through some of those issues with a therapist. Couples counseling can be helpful. Like I would recommend you go on there, like you do therapy, the other person does their therapy on their own, and then you all do like joint marriage counseling and work through some of those issues. I feel like if you take somebody back after they betrayed you, whether they betrayed you like cheating wise or financially or whatever the case is, once you make a decision to take them back, like after it happens, you have to choose like, all right, am I gonna stick it out or am I gonna go? And I I don't think you can be blamed for either one, right? Nobody, and this is one of my pet peeves, like in just in general. People are always like, oh, if so and so cheated on me, I'll never leave, or I'll never stay, or if so and so betrayed me, like I'd be gone, like I respect myself. So you mean to tell me that people who get cheated on but stay don't respect themselves? I don't agree with that. I don't think people who choose to stay like lack respect. Maybe they saw what the person did and they you work through it and you say, all right, this thing should never happen again. So it's gonna be harder, but you have to start working to rebuild that trust. Because that's like a serious violation, but there have been people, and I know people who have gone through infidelity in relationships and they bounce back. Some people say that the relationships bounce back even stronger. I don't think anybody sits there and they're like, all right, so the fourth year of us being together, I'm gonna cheat on you to make our relationship. No, I don't think it works like that. But people are able to bounce back from it and live a life that's like future oriented and not being so like in the past about, oh, like this was done to me. So if you do decide to stay, I would say make sure you can build that trust up first, and then but boundaries should be in place on both sides to keep everybody accountable, right? Should keep everybody accountable. Brett, I agree. If you stay or if you go, yeah, because look, sometimes people don't want to break up. There's kids involved, or there's feelings involved, or like you really wanted to be that person, or something drove y'all apart. So like as I've grown up, like I've seen that things aren't as like linear as I thought it was. Like, if you asked me at like 17, I'd be like, a girl cheat on me, I'm gone. I'm gone. Like you can't disrespect me. And I mean, if you ask me now, if somebody cheats, I probably would still be gone. But like at this age or this stage of my life, I'd probably be open to like trying to figure out like what happened. It depends on the investment. If it's a marriage, I'm like, all right, like what's going on? Like, are we gonna work this out? Like, let's look into this. Not being so reactionary like the older people get. Right. And yeah, Brittany, you'll know until you're in their shoes. Like it's so easy to be like, nah, I never. No, don't say that. Like you don't know. You really don't know. You really don't know. How can I set boundaries with intimacy? My husband has highs where it's all he wants due to ADHD. How should I approach it without hurting his ego? Ooh, Mickey Ficky. This is a good one right here. Mickey Ficky. This is tough. This is tough. I think so. Your husband has ADHD, and then there's times when his drive is higher than your drive. That's a really good question. And obviously, by knowing a thing or two about ADHD, you know about maybe the impulsivity, maybe him having a high drive, or even the rejection sensitive dysphoria that comes with getting criticism or being told certain things, right? It can hurt for him. But what I know for sure is that you have to be able to say what you need to say. Um, like you have to be able to communicate how you feel, because it's gonna be, if you don't set that boundary, right? All right, backtrack. It's hard to set the boundary because you love the person. You don't want to disappoint them, right? But you set that boundary by saying, "Hey, like I want to please you. Like I want to do this stuff, but like for some reason, I'm just not matching you." And then at that point, like it's out of your hands. As long as you said it respectfully, and like there's a time and place for everything. Let's say he came back from work and let's say he works in healthcare and like he lost 3 patients that day, right? That might not be the best time to have this conversation, right? But time and place for everything. So you pick a good time and you have that conversation and you say it in the most respectful manner. And at that point, like it's gonna suck. And of course, then he has to make a decision like, all right, how do I address this problem, right? And I don't know how you'll address that problem, but I know it's easier to tackle that problem if 2 people are working on it as opposed to 1. So y'all are on the same side here. But the hardest part is saying it, right? Like saying, hey, like I'm just not feeling it. That's the hard part, or if he's feeling it more than you, like that's hard. And these are real conversations. And this is why I enjoy like doing this show and like talking about this, because everywhere I look online, nobody's having these conversations, right? Like I look on these TV shows or whatever, and people are talking about this and that and the same old BS. Like it's the same old. Like anytime I turn on the TV, that's why I don't watch TV. I'm about to go to a different rant, but I want to watch like I need like this is like real. This is real shit in a sense. Like this is stuff that affects real people and real marriages, and nobody ever talks about it. So you're left to kind of just like think in your own head and figure out like what the hell would I do, Um, get some more. Some good feedback today. Some really good feedback today. Yeah, Lisa says they may be cheating or hurting from a past bad experience. Yeah, and it can be helpful, like when you go through that forgiveness process, to maybe empathize with them, see where they're coming from. Doesn't mean you should take them back, right? Like if you're done, you can be done. You can be done with somebody and still empathize with them and say, "That okay, I see what they were going through. I'm still done, but okay, I see what they were struggling with. I'm not going to judge them or call them out of their name or blast them on Facebook or whatever. But you can still be done and still have empathy for that person." I give you the love of the show. I should give you the love of the show the moment I saw that. I like that. I really, really like that. Sarah said, "This is absolute gold." Sarah, see, now I feel like like I'm happy because this is helpful. Like if it's not helpful, then what am I doing here? I could be doing something else. So I think that it's just important to talk about these things, and it's harder now with the pandemic. Like who's going out like that? I mean, I live in LA, so people are going out or whatever. But like, who's going out like that? Like who can we bounce ideas off of? Like if you don't, like for me, like if I get stuck with a patient, I'll call somebody up, or text them and say, "Hey, like, what do you think about this?" Or because like you don't want to be trapped in your own head, because nothing good comes from there. We need people's opinions. We need like some feedback, because now you take that issue back to your husband and y'all can work it out. This could be a small thing, but if you trap yourself in your own head and you're like, "All right, this ain't gonna work," you might turn like something that could have been resolved into a huge thing. You really don't want that if you can bypass it. Let me see. Ooh, I had a situationship. It was somebody I was trying to help get over their addiction, but they worked for me. Became a very tumultuous relationship. Now that they're gone, I'm not trying to forget about them because, ooh, definitely sorry to hear that, Stephen. And when you say they're gone, what do you mean? And Dakota says, "What to do with family members who don't understand mental health illness and are negative about the struggles?" So I it wasn't until people started sending my videos to family members that I realized that that could be helpful. Um, and it feels weird to like tell people, hey, maybe send my video to somebody, right? And of course, I got to preface it by saying it's not medical advice. It's just, educational content. I don't want to get sued, right? It's just educational content, take it or leave it. But sometimes people have to hear things from somebody else. Like if you're saying something over and over and over again, um, then it's like they become tone deaf to you. Maybe they need to hear it from somebody else. And even then, they might not understand. So you don't want to feel like you need to convince them to feel they may just never get it, but you hope that they get it a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. Um, what happens if you look for too many people's opinions in your? So Steve, you're right. Sometimes we want too many opinions from people. I've definitely seen that. Whereas like you're seeking. Sometimes when we know what we want to do, but we're not sure about it, we ask people like what they would do in our situation, and you're not asking for advice. We're asking to see if they would pick what you would pick for validation. So sometimes I know I do that. I know I do that. Um, look, all right, so Stephen has a different take on this. Letting go and moving on from a bad relationship has been my problem for 35 years. I can never just move on without basically mentally torturing them with so many questions that they finally have to block me. All right, so Stephen, it looks like there's something going on, like, and of course, it's just from reading one comment, but there might be an opportunity. I'm going to use opportunity versus saying that there's a problem. This might be an opportunity for you to, look in within yourself and maybe get some professional help and figure out like why these things happen. Because if you have the same relationship issues, but like with every girl, it's like a different girl, but it's like the same thing that's happening. You might have to like look in the mirror and say, okay, this is potentially like an opportunity for me to do a little bit better, take a break, and figure out what are some things I need to work on, what can I get better at. And I feel like, and I think I mentioned this here before, but I feel like there's no perfect time to go to therapy, right? There's no perfect time for it. But there's certain times when it'd be ideal to do it. And I think after a breakup is a good time to go to therapy, right? Because you can go buy certain things and do retail therapy, or you can go hook up with somebody or something like that. All those things are fun in the moment. Um, but let's say you break up with somebody tomorrow, you know, a year from now, you're not thinking about the person that you hooked up with a week and a half later. Like that person's gone to you. Like you're thinking about the person that you were with and the trauma that's still with you. So I think, after a relationship is a good time to not just singling you out, but just anybody. It's a good time for anybody. And Cindy's saying competent couples therapists are booking months out. And Cindy, I'm not. That's not surprising to hear that because like we talk about boundaries and families and all this stuff. This is probably the hardest time in the history. You know, uh, at least for us who are like living, right? I don't know if anybody's watching now and they were around during the Great Depression. Maybe they were. Shout out to them. But for those of us like who are living now, this is probably one of the weirdest times ever. Like, think about the people who are working from home. And now like I couldn't like I like my own space. I couldn't imagine like being married and like you know and like I'm sure if I'm married like that's the wife I wanted, right? But having them like this is one of my workspaces in my house, and then downstairs I have a workspace, but it's like if you can't breathe or escape from your part, like you need that space, right? So when you're working from home, I think it makes it difficult. Like you tend to have more arguments. Don't set boundaries as well because you're just kind of going through the motions. So I can see why couples therapists are booked out for months. But shout out to them and shout out to the people who are making it work. Doing their best to make it work. 'Cause it's not easy. It's not easy at all. Um, oh wow, some of these comments here. Uh, how about setting boundaries with long-term friends that get clingy and want to be around you and talk 24/7 when that a depressed episode. Oh, well, Alicia, it looks like whatever feelings you have is not being reciprocated, right? So you may have to let that person know, hey, like we're cool, but like when I'm going through it, you're not there. When you're going through it, like you want me to help out. And sometimes when you let them know that, they might say, oh, I'm sorry, like I didn't realize it, or maybe they realized it and they were waiting for you to check them. Sometimes people want you to check them. Now, take that with a grain of salt. So I want y'all to get out this live and start checking people, but sometimes people want you to set some boundaries with them. Uh, Sarah Urquhart, I appreciate you, Sarah. Thank you so much. Pandemic times have, yeah. Look, this pandemic has not been fun, And tomorrow we have tomorrow's stream. We have Dr. Judith Joseph. NYC's top psychiatrist coming to schools about dating with mental illnesses. So that's going to be a real good topic. And, she can talk a little bit about the pandemic and how things have been. But this is a very weird time, and working from home is a different beast. Like I'm not used to it. Like doing content from home, when I see patients is from home. It's just a weird time. Like I have to force myself to get out the house. Not that I don't want to get out the house, but like you go through the motions, and before you know it, it's dark. I'm like, damn, it's 75 degrees and sunny and beautiful in LA. Why can't I get out the house? So I'll have like reminders, like, all right, today we're not gonna DoorDash. We're gonna go. Actually, I did get out the house today. I walked to the place. I got my food. Went with my dog. Go to the dog park. Have conversations with people. Have people over. Go to somebody's house. But these are things that you might just forget to do because you're going through the motions. Let me say, what would you suggest? One sister keeps bringing up past mistakes and uses them to make fun of me to her friends. I told her to stop, but she keeps doing it. All right, so good question right here. So your sister keeps bringing up past mistakes and use them to make fun of you to her friends. You told her to stop, she's not stopping it. Sometimes the only way that people will respect you, you have to like take away like your presence, So I'm not saying cut off your sister, but it's like, hey, say, hey sis, I love you and whatnot, but I'm telling you to do something, and like it's not happening. Sometimes you have to follow up your words with actions. So you don't have to cut her off, but if y'all hang out every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, now you're like, all right, I'll come over Wednesday night and we can talk for a little bit, but I'm no longer coming on Tuesdays. I'm no longer coming on Saturdays. Like I'm gonna spend that time with people who respect me, and figure out how to say that in a way that it's like in your natural tone. Okay, so I tell my clients that sometimes you have to cut people out of your life until you are stronger and can set boundaries. Then revisit that relationship to see if any's better with your strong boundaries and better mental health. Yeah. And sometimes people are in your life because they can take advantage of you. And I don't want y'all to get paranoid and say, oh, this person's out to get me. But sometimes people are your friends because of the dynamic of the friendship, and once you set that boundary, that friendship is no longer going to be the way it was, because like your friendship was contingent upon them having like an upper hand on you. And now as you set boundaries, it looks like becoming even. And that's going to feel like an attack to the person who had the upper hand. So something to think about. Key practice across state lines. So no, Meryl, you need a state license in every single state. I've spent thousands of dollars getting licenses in different states, not knowing what I wanted to do with it, but like I had the desire to see patients all across, and then I've spent too much money. And now, like with my schedule, it's become so incredibly busy that I'm scaling back on patients outside Virginia. I'm scaling back on everything. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I wanted to, and if I have a good system, maybe. But the beginning of this year is shaped up to be pretty busy, and I'm going to be on the road a lot. So you have to decide you want to get better. I'm the sole provider with absolutely no help from anyone. My family's all gone and find a therapist. Virtual is an option. Don't be scared of it. It will get bad before it gets better. I just keep telling myself I want to be a better parent. Yeah, Brittany, I like that. And that's a mentality thing, where you want to be better and you're doing everything that you can do to help yourself out. So I definitely respect that. I think you're doing a Brittany, that's fantastic. And like I love your perspective. It's glass half full. Like you have that perspective. But not everybody has that perspective. And I have a lot of empathy for people who don't. And I was explaining this to somebody the other day, but when people are depressed, a lot of times you see like hopelessness and helplessness. So if I tell someone who's depressed, or like if I give someone who's depressed like 9 great things and 1 negative thing, and I lay it out in front of them, like, all right, boom, here you go. That's what we got. We have these 9 amazing things, and we have 1 awful thing. The tendency, at least from my experience, that the depressed person will bypass all the positive stuff and they'll zone in on that 1 negative thing. Like you just really can't shift their mindset away. So it takes time and effort and patience. But if you are to the point where your mindset is there, where you're willing to go and do and make those improvements, then Brittany, shout out. So I definitely, yeah, Brittany's doing it. People like Brittany, like that's what I post. I post for everyday people. I know it says Hollywood mental health expert in my bio on IG, but I post for everyday people who are, doing what they can. So I I think Brittany deserves a love of the show. Definitely give her a love of the show. I know it's difficult to be a sole provider. It can be really tough. Um, Tiffany says, I cut off a 5-year friend who wanted to start drinking every night during the pandemic. Oh, Mickey Ficky. I started getting very sick and depressed. I told her, no, I can't drink with you every night anymore. Although I work from home, my job is my livelihood. I can't sleep and be hungover and neglect my job. Needless to say, I haven't spoke to this 5-year friend over 7 months. Radio silence, and that's okay. Tiffany, yeah, man, I gotta give you a love of the show for your transparency. It's back to back love of the show, but that once again, that's why I like doing this, because people don't talk about that. Like having a long term friend, and you know, I mean, shout out to her. Like I know, if somebody's drinking every day, like we know that's a problem, right? But maybe that person might not see it. Maybe there's something going on there, and sharing pain with somebody else is a way of bonding. Now you know that for your long term health, but what you have to do is not going to be productive to do that. But that's where they're at. So sometimes you have to, meet people where they're at, but you don't have to necessarily stay there if it's going to negatively affect you. So I definitely hope that she can get he or she can get the help that they need. But there's nothing wrong with setting that boundary, and that's what I'm talking about when I set the topic for or the little description for the topic. How do we set boundaries with family? You might as well make that friends too. Like it's hard to, having a friend that you have for 5 years is a long time, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, we can't hang out like that because I'm not trying to drink every night. Um, it's hard. Like this is really what's happening. It's really what's happening. Mike, hey Mike, shout out to my boy Mike. I love the show for Mike just because Mike has been one of my OG supporters on TikTok, and we just had 2 million followers yesterday. He's been there since like day one. This is about so. Mike, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Someone says friends are like jeans. Sometimes they don't fit. Oh, I never heard that one. Never heard that one. I like that. But Mike, yeah, we're grinding out here. I think there's something to be said about routines and staying like busy and being disciplined. And for me, knowing that I have to, well, I don't have to do this. I could quit the show whenever I want. But knowing that I committed myself to doing this every day, 6 p.m. California time, 9 p.m. on the East Coast, it forces me to have some sort of accountability, right? And now when I get to Friday and I don't do the show on Fridays, I'm like, okay, Friday I can relax, like I can go out or I can do whatever, but it helps me separate my Tuesdays from my Saturdays. And it's really hard to do that in these pandemic times. Let me see if I can get some good feedback in here. Your videos and positive vibes help me be better at my job. Lindsay, I appreciate that. Um, ooh, Vaughn, Vaughn. Check it out. Cut off a parent that broke. I cut off a parent that broke several boundaries, but I would eventually like to reestablish a relationship with them, but with boundaries. Advice. So, Vaughn, you're actually in a good position. And Raymond, thank you for your comment. You're in a good position because if you left the relationship with your parents, it means that like you weren't happy with where things were. So when you leave, I mean, if they come back to you, like you have the leverage to establish a relationship with the boundaries, right? But even with you reaching out, you can put out some feelers and say, hey, you know, mom or dad, like what's going on? Like I'm just checking in on you. Is everything all right? You can slowly start to work your way back, get to know them again. Because like if you haven't talked to them in like 18 months, you have to like figure out like what's up, like what's new in their life. And as you begin to like lay the bricks again, then you can start to establish those boundaries a little bit better, right? Because you're building a relationship from the ground up again. So sometimes what people have to do is they have to leave and come back. You've already left, so now it's just a matter of coming back. Yeah. Let me see. You have a new parrot next week. Wear some leggings. Cindy, that's funny. That's funny. That's funny. I like that. That's funny. Uh, Jacqueline says, I'll have 6 years clean and sober in July this year. You know, you get love of the show for that. If I drank too much, I only have 2 or 3 glasses a day. I never said there were 700 glass bottles, Judy. 750 milliliters. Oh, my math is bad. Oh my gosh. I My math is bad. I'm not good with math, Judy. That's a weak spot. Help me out, Judy. Um, Michelle, I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. You know, it's so mind blowing to know that like these videos help people out. But like now, I believe it. You know, I believe it. Even with my assistants, we can't go through all the messages. Like, and that way, I know that we're doing something. Something is working. So I feel very fortunate. Meryl, I'm happy to help out. Oh, 2 bottles. Wow. Wow. Okay, I gotta do better in my math. Um, Ashley says, "Is it okay to be sad?" I think it's okay to. Sadness is an emotion, so there's nothing wrong with being sad, you know. But if you've been sad every day for 3, 4 months, you know, like could be a sign that like not everything is working as well as it could be working. But sadness is just an emotion, right? Same way, like when your team wins the game, you're happy, but it doesn't last forever because inevitably your team will lose again. And trust me, I know about that. I needed the dance to end the live. Hey, Tiffany, check out. Actually, I'm not sure if I posted, but I'm gonna post my um my a little dance tutorial that I put on TikTok today. I'll post it on Facebook. Um, Let me see. I think I saw a good comedy here. Maybe my weekend was good. I had a good weekend. This was like a resting weekend. I didn't do too much. I had friends. My homeboy and his younger brother were in town from Georgia, so they pulled up on me Saturday night. It was fantastic. They said they were in LA, so I'm like, "Yo, y'all have to come by the house." And they came, and we had a really good time. So I had a good weekend. You know, I was just resting and watching old football highlights, and then get to hang out with them. So thank you for asking. Um, uh, Let me see. My family puts a lot of expectations on me because I have done well for myself. I don't know why I feel obligated to help them with everything, money, groceries. I just bought my sister a wheelchair, but when I try to spend time with them, it's like it's not enough. I feel like I'm a bad person sometimes because I don't want to help them all the time. Good question right there. So when you when you've done a lot for something, for somebody or a group of people, right, or your family member, and you feel like it's not enough, then sometimes that's a good time to like sit back and reevaluate, like, what's the goal there? Is it to help them or is it to help you? You know, and it's kind of deep. It's kind of deep. Think about it for a second. Sometimes we do things to make ourselves feel better about somebody or a situation, right? So in like your head, you have this idea of what it looks like to be a helpful family member, right? You gotta do everything for them, and you feel like if you drop the ball like in one area, you're not a good daughter, right, or a good sister. But that's the expectations that you're putting on yourself. It might be influenced by something that is happening within the family, but it's not sustainable to be perfect all the time. So inevitably, you're gonna drop the ball somewhere. You know, so you have to make space for that because like you can't be perfect all the time. And if you look back at everything that you've done, you've actually been a very helpful family member. Like you've done a lot. So I would say it's internal, like making peace with what you've done. Because if you try and like always one up yourself, like you can't one up yourself. You can, you don't want to though. You don't want to because then you're gonna be stuck trying to do things for their approval. But it's never gonna be enough. It's never gonna be enough. Let me see. Sometimes I feel like I don't do enough for them. Like I'll help them out and do things for them, but I feel like because I can't do more. So Jordan, yeah, I've been there before where, you know, and I talked about it a little bit in the beginning. And for me, like I said, we didn't grow up with a lot of anything, right? Not didn't have a lot of money. Some Christmases we didn't have a lot of gifts or whatever. So I what I would do, and I talked about this one time, I think on TikTok, where I told a story about how one day I came back home from work. I was working, this is when I was working as a psych RN on the unit, maybe 2014 or so. Yeah, maybe 2014, 2015. So I come back from work, it's payday. I was saving money to go to school, but I'm trying to think. I don't remember having a girlfriend at that time. So I probably had some extra money in my pocket, right? So I remember coming home. It was Friday, so I went by the ATM, and I literally went to ATM. I grabbed $800. I gave my mom 400. I gave my dad $400, and the look on their face when I gave them the money, they were so happy because it came out of nowhere, right? Like somebody gave me $400 out of nowhere. It's like it's so random, but I just felt like I should just give them money. I'm like, hey, mom, dad, here's $400 each, and I realized that that made them happy. So for a while there, I was like buying them all kinds of things, like trying to make up for lost time and, you know, trying to like repay my mom for being a good mom or repay my dad. But what I had to understand, and I had to pull back, and I still do for them, right? My parents are never going to be wanting, but I don't just like throw things at them, you know, unless I sign a big deal, right? If some the big blessing comes, of course I'm gonna shoot them something. But what I was trying to do for me, I was trying to repay my mom for raising me. But if I actually was able to repay her for raising me, I would never be able to do it, right? Because you can't even put that into like financial terms or like do some other type of activity for them. Because I mean, when somebody carries you for 9 months and like raises you and like you can never repay them. So trying to repay them was like a losing battle, and it was like something in my head that I had to get out of my own head. So now that I realized that, I was like, all right, okay, I'll have to do those things, you know. And then when you stop like randomly giving your parents $400, they'll be like, "Is everything all right?" But I'm like, "Yeah, like I got school to pay for. I got things to do, you know. I got things to do." Intrusive thoughts. Someone asked about intrusive thoughts. It's good to understand that intrusive thoughts are just a thought. It's just that. If you can get to the point where you don't let it represent who you are, I think that can help you deal with them. Because sometimes they just come, right? And like it will freak you out sometimes, you know. So it's like freak you out all the way. Earthly father, earthly family, my father in heaven. Oh, Meg, I like that. Meg, I like that. come from a good Christian, and I see where you're coming from, for sure. How would you start setting boundaries in the first generation American home? Certain boundaries can be considered rude in our culture. I get so anxious on where to start my aging parents. So, Kimberly, I think the best thing you can do is to take things one at a time and do your best to explain something to your parents, like as you do it. And at some point, the older you get, like if you're not like a child, like you can move the way you want to move. And you tell your parents, "All right, I'm going to do this. Just a heads up," and they're like, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" You're like, "Oh, I've decided to do this. I'm just letting you know." Because at first, sometimes it's like, do you mind if you can watch the kids? And I'm gonna go to like uh, North Dakota. I said North Dakota. And then after a while, as like your confidence builds up, you're like, "Hey, mom, dad, like I'm about to go to South Dakota on this work trip or whatever. Like I'd like for you to watch the kids or whatever. But if not, I've arranged childcare. But I'm just giving you a heads up because I'm gonna go." So at some point, it progresses to like when your confidence really, really, really picks up. Yeah. Let's see if I can get some more good feedback in here. Um, Oh, I like this comment right here. Recovering from physical, sexual, and emotional abuse takes a lot of time and patience. I left my abuser 11 years ago. Over the past 11 years, I figured out what most of my triggers are. Knowing your triggers so you can try to essentially remind yourself it's not always going to lead to abuse is a good starting point. I agree. And after you've been through like trauma, and you're able to work your way into finding out what your triggers are, and you've practiced staying up for yourself, somebody like that is pretty good at setting boundaries, because you know that if you don't set boundaries, you know what, like, what that feeling feels like. It's not a good feeling at all. It's not a good feeling at all. All right, let me answer this one last question that I get out of here. How can I set boundaries with my adult child? They know I love them and they're taking advantage and not wanting to leave the nest. It's funny because, coming from where I come from, like African parents trying to keep you until you're married, right? Or as long as possible. And I think in American culture is like, no, like you can leave now. Sarah, it can be tough because I think every parent, you want to make your home comfortable for your kids, but maybe your child is too comfortable. So when you pull the rug from underneath them, it really feels like it might feel like you're choking them. They can't breathe. Like, it's gonna be tough for them uh like to get it together, right? If they've always had mom and dad like a very comfortable home, it's gonna be hard for them to transition out. So I think by giving them deadlines and saying, hey, like, I like this house is for your father and I, and by June of this year, like I'd like to see you take some steps to get out, and like by the week before June 1st, you might come around and they haven't made any plans to go. And at some point, you might have to start playing hardball and say, all right, okay, like I told you. Because if you tell somebody, or if you give them until July 4th, right? Let them stay a little bit longer, enjoy the holiday. But the week after July 4th, you got to move. If they don't make any preparations at all to move, they haven't even called to look for apartments, then that's a clear sign of like disrespect, because it's like you're not you're not respecting my boundary, and then it forces you to have to make the uncomfortable decision. And I know a lot of people who've been stuck in similar situations, and when their parents or whoever was keeping them accountable actually put their foot down, it felt like hell to them in the beginning. But after the fact, they would say things like, I'm so happy that my mom or my dad or my friend did this. Like that was the intervention that I needed. Like sometimes people they just need to like, put your foot down, and that's sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody. Let me see. What did Kristen say real quick? Um, uh, Maybe we should have a good question that she said. Somebody repost Kristen's question. I see a lot of people talking about it, and it got me a little curious. I want to see what she was talking about before I Facebook people. Caprice, send an email to my assistant at kojosarfo.com. If y'all can wait until February, that'd be great. February is a hell of a month for me. maybe encourage them and help them move out. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. Like ask them, because maybe the kids don't know how to move out, and in that case, then it'd be helpful to help them out because maybe they don't know. So that's actually a really good point right there. Ian says, "I got my life together when my mother stopped enabling." I like that. I really like that. How do you know when you need to set a boundary versus remove a person entirely? Terrence, a good question. I would say if you set a boundary with somebody and you stop spending time with them, or you spend less time with them, and you feel way better, and anytime you do spend time with them, you feel like absolute shit. That might need to be somebody that you see at a minimum like level of frequency. Um, what was Chris's question? Larry TikToks and Jordan, I appreciate that. If you feel overwhelmed with setting boundaries, starts. Yeah, I agree with Brittany. Start small, like literally, like the bet. You know what, Brittany? I give you another love of the show. I think this is the second love of the show that you're getting. I think Brittany's gonna get two love of the shows. So I like that. Start small. Like literally, if you want to start setting boundaries with your family, start small. Like do it with like your dog. Like your dog gets 30 minutes of playtime, we're gone, right? Or it could be something as small for my people out there with social anxiety. You go out to Cold Stone Creamery and you're getting ice cream, and then you're like, you tell them what to put on, and they throw some gummy bears on there. And you don't like gummy bears, right? But they accidentally put one or two on there. You tell the person, the server, like, hey, I don't like gummy bears. You mind taking those two off? Right? That small thing is speaking up for yourself, right? And then it's making you feel empowered. Because sometimes you're like, I don't want the gummy bears on there, but I'm just gonna like let them stay. When I get my car, I'll just take it off. Now you can do that, but when you speak up for yourself, it shows that you're being assertive, right? It shows that you're telling the other person something that you need, and it's a pretty reasonable request. Most people are not gonna be like, no. People are like, yeah, okay, I'll take off the gummy bears, right? And you walk away from that encounter knowing, okay, like I feel respected, I feel heard, right? And it's gonna boost your confidence, and you can start setting like bigger boundaries, but you have to really start like small. I'm trying to get Chris's question. Oh, that was Christina's question. See, I don't know how they do moderators on here, but I would love to have a moderator for StreamYard. I think that's coming at some point. Um, I think that's coming at some point. Mickey Ficky. Ian, I appreciate that. Ian, and like I said, that's why I enjoy this type of thing, because like, like I want to talk about like real life situations, like all the extra BS, leave it for like wherever's on TV. Like I want to get to the heart of what's affecting people, so that's what makes this unique from any other thing. How should I ask some questions from my kids about setting boundaries with my dad? Um, I don't understand that question in a sense. As I need more background information right there. I need more background information right there. Oh, Caprice, the email is assistant@kojosarfo.com, KOJOSARFO.com. So go ahead and send that to my assistant. Like I said, February is this year, like, it got busy. Like I know into March, like, I got to go to New York at some point, Boston, Atlanta, this all kinds of stuff is happening so fast. But go ahead and send that email so that way at least it's on our radar. Ashley, what's going on? Leslie, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Why do people make you feel guilty when you say no? Ooh, Meg, I have to give you a love of the show. People feel guilty when you say no because most likely they're used to you saying yes. Let me see. Why do people? Wait, did I answer that correctly? Why do people? Hold up. Was it? Why people make you feel guilty when you say no? Okay, all right. No, I did answer correctly. Right. They make you feel guilty when you say no because you're used to saying yes to them. And if that's how the relationship has been built, where you're always caving into their demands, the moment you say no, they're gonna be frustrated. They're gonna be like, "Hold up! Like this is not the type of friendship I wanted. Like this friendship runs off of you doing what I want you to do." So when you stand up for yourself, it's going to be quite difficult, really difficult. All right, people guilt tripping you. That's what's happening. Um, for sure. I don't forget what I have to go to New York for. I just don't have to be in New York City. Oh boy. Let me see. Best way to remove or avoid family when other family pushes you into a relationship. To do the smallest thing possible that can have the biggest amount of impact, Nick. That's why I say something small, but to let people know that hey, like your voice needs to be heard. Mickey Ficky. I cannot get I forgot which person I was trying to get their thing to. But let me see the guys at the gym. Oh yeah. All right. I gotta dip out because I gotta go play ball at the gym, and I have to lift weights too. I know it looks late, but it's 7 o'clock here in California. So, Casey, I appreciate that. Brett, yeah, I would love to start that back up and figure out how to get the coaching up for people who are asking about the coaching. I think it might be a while before I get that set up because I know I have one thing that I can't announce yet that I'm working on that's taking up a lot of time this month. I think we get to announce that. Actually, I don't want to talk about that and get in trouble. But yeah, hopefully we can get the coaching set up soon. But yeah, I gotta get off. Like I said, tomorrow we have Dr. Judith. Why can't I say that name? Judith. I can say Judy, but I can't say Judith. Judith. This is embarrassing. Judith Joseph, NYC's top psychiatrist. She's gonna be here talking about dating with mental illnesses. It's gonna be really good. Her perspective, being in New York City, treating people there, she gets into the culture. She knows what's going on. So I'm looking forward to having her on tomorrow, and we will get up then. So gotta get off. Gotta head to the gym. Gotta lift some weights, and hopefully we win when I play basketball. But take care. I love all y'all, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.